Robin Lowe, Minister of Agriculture for Malawi. Professor Amos Lar, Associate Professor of the University of Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Africa's food systems are already transforming before our eyes, driven by urbanization and other demographic shifts, changes in dietary patterns, climate change, socioeconomic shocks, and protracted conflicts and crises, among the many other factors. But the question before us is, will we simply watch them transform in a way that exacerbates the undernutrition as well as obesity and other pandemics? Will we simply watch them transform in a manner that amplifies inequality, iniquity, as well as poverty, and in a manner that destroys the biosphere and the environment in which we find ourselves in? Or alternatively, will we intentionally shape them towards a nourishing, equitable, sustainable, as well as a resilient future? I think it is obvious that doing nothing will be disastrous for livelihoods as well as for the food systems, and nations must therefore act to avoid such undesirable outcomes. Policy plays a key and central role in catalyzing country-led innovations to transform food systems. And national governments are a key entry point of government, as well as of governance, as well as agency in this process of transformation. The world food price crisis of 2007, 2008, as well as 2010, and the emergence of the scaling up nutrition movement in 2012, and strategies such as the African Union Agenda 2063, the CAADP, and the Malabo Declaration, all influenced the development of food security and nutrition strategies in many sub-Saharan African countries over the past decade. However, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, despite their commendable efforts at cross-sector policy coherence and the progress achieved in such countries as Senegal, Zambia, as well as Ethiopia, these strategies have focused primarily on agricultural production or maternal and nutritional and nutrition. They have not focused on other key components of the food systems. Even approaches designed as integrated, such as the South Africa's integrated food security strategy, they often boil down to sectoral approaches. For example, tasking governmental departments with improved agricultural production. And it can be argued that therefore, they were not sufficiently coordinated to handle multidisciplinary challenges such as nutritional security for all citizens. The momentum that is generated by the Food System Summit has propelled global discourse towards food system transformation. It has highlighted the need for policy integration and coherence at the national level to mobilize actors, catalyze investment and innovation, and deliver on the nourishing, equitable, and sustainable food systems we all aspire to. Ladies and gentlemen, it is from this perspective that the FST initiative has embarked on working with countries to contribute to their efforts towards building better, effective, and resilient food systems. At this point, let me stop and hand back to the moderator, who is going to request a member of our team to now present the emerging results from the countries in which we are working on with the FST initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Machaya. Excellent opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to welcome Ms. Jillian Palman, Project Leader, Boston Consulting Group, BCG, to give a short presentation on the FSTIP. Ms. Palman currently works at BCG, as I mentioned, as a project leader. She's a core member of BCG's social impact practice based in Nairobi in Kenya. Work closely with clients around the world on issues related to strategy development, nutrition, delivery programs, building inclusive markets. She's currently leading the Food System Transformative Integrated Policy Efforts, FSTIP, in Rwanda, Ghana, and Malawi. Previously, she worked at the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in South Africa. She holds a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in international economics from the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Ms. Palman, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Araba. Honorable ministers, panelists, guests, welcome everyone. It's an honor to talk to you today as part of this UN Food Systems pre-summit. I think this summit taking place this week is iterating the central role that food systems play in the health and well-being of people of our planet, the role that it's playing in the economies of all our different countries. And I think it's showing the need to really embark on a transformation of our food systems now, and to take that holistic approach that is required to transform it to be a food system that can provide healthy diets for all of us. Today, I'd like to share with you a very short presentation before we hear from our panelists, which I think will be a much more even interesting part of this meeting today. But to give you all a bit of a view of the work that we have been doing as a coalition, so Food Systems Transformative Integrated Policy Coalition, and the role that we've been playing in the past months. So to introduce you to some of the coalition partners that are with us here today and that are behind this initiative, I'd like to very briefly walk you through all of them. So we have the African Population and Health Research Center, Academia 2063, AGRA, Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, the Boston Consulting Group, IDRC, IFPRI, Rockefeller Foundation, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, and the World Food Programme. And I think this shows to you the diverse group of partners that have been included in this effort. And the ambition of this effort has always been to support and work together with African countries and governments that have a strong vision and that have the will to embark on such a food systems transformation. And with that in mind, the initiative of Food Systems Transformative Integrated Policy was launched with the idea in mind that policy is one of the most important levers that can be used to make a change in the food system. And the end goal of all of this, and I think this is an end goal that we can probably all already behind, is to realize sustainable, healthy diets for all. And that means diets and making sure that all humans have consistent access to nutritious and high quality foods and diets. But that also promotes planetary health, supports child development, prevents diseases, and conserves the biosphere resources. And so with this ambition in mind, of course, we also realize that this is a very complex challenge that all of us are facing on the world. And it does not only require very bold vision and willingness to embark on an effort, which will can be an intergenerational effort, but it also requires to have a solid fact-based foundation to understand what the current state is of food systems before we get started. And the ambition of this project initiative has been to support, especially in the past months, on building that fact base. So developing a landscaping and diagnostic approach to understand what are some of the main challenges a country is facing in its food system, but also identifying where the opportunities lie, understanding what the current policies are that are in place, where opportunities are, where there's maybe gaps, as well as understanding all of the stakeholders that are involved and understanding where there might actually be data or evidence gaps at the moment. And as we have been doing this and in lead up to this pre-summit and the summit itself in later this year, we're also surely starting to shift to say what's next, what will come next after this summit. There's going to be a lot of commitments, and there will be lots of momentum and lots of great plans. But of course, the journey doesn't end there. It's a great milestone, but we also should start thinking already around about what will come next. Just to share with those of you here on the call that might be interested in understanding in a bit more detail what is it that that we have looked at and how did we approach this diagnostic. I will not go into all the details of this now, but as part of our initiative, we will also be developing a toolkit where we will in more detail share all the different tools that we have developed, so that also in other countries this can be used. But I think good to understand is that we have as much as possible tried to build upon existing frameworks in place or existing resources and structures. So that includes some of the existing frameworks around food systems that try to look at, let's say, all the way from the beginning to the end of the food systems, but also taking into account programs such as CADAP and the indicators related to that, and linking to the action tracks of the UN Food Systems Summit. We've also realized that because of the scope and complexity of food systems, it's quite key to also take a manageable set of indicators. So we have developed a set of super indicators that we use to look at food systems, but of course giving room to deep dive where needed. But with the policymakers in place and also the need to make it comprehensible and manageable, this is a specific approach that we have taken. Now, of course, our panelists will share with you in more detail some of the insights that all of this has generated, some of the quantitative insights, the qualitative insights. But what I did want to share with you, except for going into the details of the 3 countries that we have looked at, and the countries that we have focused on in our work so far are Ghana, Malawi, and Rwanda. And for these countries, we have the representatives with us today in the panel. So they will share more on the implications and also the insights generated from this work. But 3 key learnings that I did want to share that go across the countries and to give us as a bit of takeaways for this presentation are 3 things, and they're more related almost to our process that we have taken. And I think the first thing is really to say, try to build this diagnostic with always the user in mind and working along the way to generate and integrate insights from the users and have constant engagement with the users, which will create a common understanding and an understanding that's most useful to these users. Build as much as possible upon existing structures. So a lot of integration with the dialogues has been happening in our work. And collaborate and form partnerships. I think you'll see that the diversity of backgrounds of coalition partners in this initiative has really enabled us to bring together a lot of different insights. As a final word of introducing our coalition is to say that, as we said, we don't believe this journey ends with the UN Food Systems Summit. We see it as a milestone and an important milestone where most of the work will continue also afterwards. And so also as a coalition, we will continue to work together with African countries to help them with the development and implementation of integrated and transformative food systems policies. But we'll also see where we can support and to conduct similar diagnostic and landscaping analyses, leveraging this toolkit that I mentioned before. Let me hand back to our moderator. I think we're all eager to get our panel started. So Dr. Debussy, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian. This is the exciting part of the session, and We have just heard Julian give us a walkthrough of what FSTIP aims to achieve and the process. We have the unique honor and privilege of having an esteemed lineup of speakers on the panel discussion coming up. But before that, I would like to invite members of the audience to use the chat function to put in any questions that they have, either anything you've heard in the first two discussions, either Ms. Palman's presentation on FSTIP or Dr. Machaya's introductory remarks, or even during the panel discussion. Please use the chat function to put in your questions, and I will pose them. Rest assured that I will pose them to the panel members before today's session is over. Now, our first panelist is none other than Dr. Jean Chrysostome Ngabit Sinze. He is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources in Rwanda. Dr. Ngabit Sinze is prior to being appointed as a Minister of State, was a member of Parliament. So he's done both executive and legislative experience. He was chairing the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, and he's currently the Secretary General of the Social Democratic Party in Rwanda, a position he's held since 2015. For over 10 years, he was a senior lecturer at the University of Rwanda, also an academic, where he taught agriculture economics, amongst other courses. Besides teaching and political work, he has served on various boards of government agencies. In 2016, he was appointed to the board of directors for the National Agriculture Export Development Board of Rwanda for 2 years. Prior to that, he chaired the National Land Commission under the Ministry of Natural Resources for 3 years. Honorable Minister, it is a rare privilege and a pleasure to have you on. You have listened to Julian's presentation and you are familiar with FSTIP, the approach. What implication from your perspective, both as someone who's had a research background, who's been in Parliament as a member of the legislature, and also now in the executive as a minister in cabinet, what implications would you say the diagnostic analyses will have for policy development and implementation? You can speak specifically about Rwanda, or if you choose to extrapolate generically about any country. Why is it so important for countries to have this right? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, moderator. Allow me just to thank organizers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We thank you so much from Rwanda to give us this time to discuss about the important thing on food systems today, where we have millions and millions of people with serious problems of nutrition, stunting, and so on. So let me talk about Rwanda before, because we have been working to make sure that our system, when we talk about a system, is not an individual thing, is interconnected situation where we have to work together to make sure that what we are doing is not a result of individual efforts, but a result of common understanding and common planning and implementation. In Rwanda, we have put in place some strategies to be able to look ahead 2030, 2050, to make sure that we are making sure our farmers, our household are producing enough food. But of course, we fought no challenges, because if you see the work done in terms of diagnostic, in terms of assessment of problems, we still have challenges on the production side, meaning that using good seeds, put investment. If you see the investments we are doing or we have been doing is covering quantitative side of things, and food is more qualitative when you see in terms of having benefit on health. So we have been struggling to make sure that all stakeholders, meaning that other ministries, civil society, private sector, we are working together to make sure that we are finding solutions. And unfortunately, the solutions we are getting now is the solution because now we are talking about worldwide summit system on food. So meaning that things are not happening as we wish. When we see on side of consumption, The consumption, you can produce food, and we do at the quantity level, but there is a cost associated on healthy food. The cost is still high. Those costs, even they are hidden costs where you will find even what you call sunk costs. You invested the money, but you're not be able to recover because of the characteristics of how things have been done. So meaning that we don't have sufficient in terms of food and good food, nutritious food to feed our people in order to minimize the negative side of malnutrition, as I have said, starting on children. Even now in Africa, we are experiencing obesity, so meaning that something is not going as you want. Then there is the investment. I talked about investment. Of course, there is public expenditure, even related to CADAP, where countries agree to put a lot. What we are doing, let's say, quite well, because we are trying to put a big amount of our GDP on agriculture. But if you see the disaggregation of investment, we still have challenges in terms of covering what smallholder farmers need in terms of land accessibility, in terms of finance, in terms of quality of input or factors of production. So we still have things to do. Then when you see infrastructures, how district sectors, sales are connected, we still have investment to do in order to make sure that everything you are doing is giving us tangible and sustainable result. Then there is the issue of cross-cutting. You see, the factors of production is one thing you can control, but when you have external factors, where you have, for example, climate change, you have environmental issues, but we have even issues of human capital or population. Here we have in Africa, we have a population, young population. In Rwanda, almost 60% of our population is young. Then we have another amount of people who are women. So we think even to accelerate or create, let's say, design solutions, feasible, implementable, actionable to youth, because youth, as I have said, covering 6%, women almost the same. So it's a component on which we can't leave behind. So we are even trying to address those issues of cost cutting. Then, in terms of doing well efficiently, we have to make sure that our tools we are applying are efficient, meaning that information and technology today, we are in a globalized world. We have to make sure that people are connected using tools more than traditional ways we have been using in Africa or in other countries under development. So those are things in which the assessment done with our partners here today we are talking about, or diagnostic, those are results they have seen, and we feel, and we see, and we accept as a government. But from there, you have to think more on how can we make sure that we are governing all those resources, we are putting together all variables in order to work efficiently, and then to make sure that our economies, Rwandan or Africans, we are getting result. Now we are under a pandemic. This is another external factor in which we can't avoid to talk about. This is a negative impact on what we are doing. So meaning that we have to think more, because a system is not a way of game blaming. Not a system is a way to think, to put in our mind that people need to work together, people need to collaborate, people need to interconnect in order to achieve together, in order to achieve in long run sustainable solutions. And honestly saying, system, many times we think about it as a political situation, but system is not a political, it's a technical one. Because the system is putting together small pieces in order to have a system as a whole, is where we have an equation to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. You've given us the synthesized approach to FSTIP. We've heard, bits from your academic background to why it's important in policy. You ended up talking about the system not being a political thing. It really is about people and lots of parts working collaboratively. I would like to think of systems in the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. There's an interdependency and interconnectedness of all these little parts that ensure that we have access to healthy, safe, nutritious food. And we thank you for the great work that you are doing in Rwanda, and also by being an excellent example of how public policy can drive transformation in a country, and of course, as a guide for the rest of the continent. Now, I would like to invite the next panelist, if he's on, Honorable Lobin Low. Clarky Low is the Minister of Agriculture in Malawi. Honorable Low has been a member of parliament in the Malawi National Assembly since 2009, and currently serves as the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. He has worked with the Ministry of Agriculture as an extension officer and Interaid organization. After leaving Interaid, the Honorable Minister ventured into commercial farming, where he founded and has been the managing director of Green World Farms, where he specializes in the production of mangoes and bananas. The Honorable Minister was elected to the Malawi Congress Party as Chief Whip in the Malawi National Assembly. He served there as leader of opposition in the National Assembly, of course, prior to his appointment into cabinet. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Honorable Minister. You've heard from your colleague counterpart, Honorable Ngabit Sinze, on the Rwanda experience. In the spirit of Ubuntu, Honorable Minister, can you share with us, from Malawi's perspective, what is Malawi doing? Of course, since the start of this year, we've been involved in the dialogues process for the Food System Summit, which is coming up in September. And Malawi has been leading the way in bringing together multiple stakeholders to discuss, but also to fashion out the vision for how Malawi wishes to transform her food systems across the country. What lessons can we learn from you, Honorable Minister, from Malawi that you would like to share in the spirit of the FSTIP that we're discussing today? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased for organizers to invite me to be part of this discussion this afternoon on the sideline of the Puri Summit of the UN Food Systems to take place in New York, USA, later in September 2021. The call by the global leadership to bring and engage everyone in the food systems value chain as we search for solutions to accelerate our efforts towards achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals is a noble one. The recent socio-economic and environmental challenges we have encountered have reminded us that as human beings, we can come together, work together towards a common goal. We therefore consider this summit an opportunity to contribute to common discourse to benefit the people and our mother planet. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the involvement and participation of the food systems transformative integrated policy initiatives is a welcome development, especially considering that besides supporting national dialogue and articulation of pathways to achieve sustainable food system, its perspective spans beyond Food System Summit and focuses on building a platform for transformation, policy development, capacity building, innovation, and investment. Let me now turn to the guided areas of discussions. I'm talking of key insights from the diagnostic analysis for Malawi which include the following. We are talking of low production and yields. This is due to predominance of smallholder farmers in my country. The majority of farmers are engaged in smallholder farming, whereby productivity levels remain lower than actual potential. This is because of smallholding land size and labor-intensive production. The other issue is to do with malnutrition and unhealthy dietary practices. And here we are talking of something that creates unique threat to health and productivity for a huge segment of our population. The positive part, however, is that strides are being made to reduce malnutrition through different interventions, such as nutrition literacy, promotion of nutritious crops, such as legumes. And on climate shocks, here we are talking of shocks that affect the agriculture sector heavily. The frequent occurrence of climate shocks such as drought, floods have affected production levels, and most farmers rely on rain-fed agriculture. And as a country, we are promoting irrigation now, considering that we can now double the benefits. Let's look at the poor infrastructure. Here we are talking of food. Is it available? Yes, it's available. Is it accessible? That's the challenge now because of road infrastructure, even transportation itself. That makes it the food to be not affordable. So if these are addressed, it would be the benefit to the consumers and even to the producers, because at some point, poor farmers are at disadvantage at the time of harvesting, because vendors just go and rob from them. And the other issue is implication for the policy development and implementation. The dialogues have unearthed the complexity of food systems, which the analysis also highlight. This calls for the full involvement of all stakeholders, both at policy development and implementation stages. The challenges identified require concerted efforts by all stakeholders. Over time, the policy arm has lacked the monitoring component in the implementation of the relevant authorities. Hence, M&E would be key priority in the policy discourse to ensure and enhance progress tracking and feed into the policy formation. Coordination of stakeholders would also have positive impact on the policy development and implementation, since food systems dialogues have brought together diverse stakeholders from various disciplines. Improved financing of the food systems interventions by government, NGOs, development partners, and the private sector, and the financing should focus on priority areas across the sectors. There is need for ring fencing financing to avoid such misappropriations. How do we build on existing governance structures as we move towards food systems transformation? A lack of effective coordination and collaboration amongst actors affects proper delivery and effectiveness of the food system. There is also need to strengthen governance structure at lower levels. There is therefore need to mainstream and institutionalize the financing of governance structures through the creation of budget lines in the national budget for continuity and government ownership. And there is also need to activate a higher level governance structure at political level to review the food systems through the oversight roles. This would help in the transformation agenda and also track progress. It is important to establish new structures such as transformation agencies. There's need to have an in-depth analysis of the existing structures to understand why we are failing in the food system transformation. And it is worth noting that there may be no need for establishment of new structures if the challenges can be addressed and be properly restructured. Ensuring inclusivity in food systems policy development and implementation. For food systems to be made more inclusive with the level of policy that lower the barriers to participation, there is need for wider stakeholder consultations at all levels to input into the policy development process. And there is need to focus on the following: providing the instruments and infrastructure and services to foster broad-based economic growth, particularly in rural areas. Equipping marginalized people with the means for success, and creating social protection programs that safeguard the food and nutrition security of most vulnerables. How the summit and dialogue momentum be harnessed beyond the summit. Here, we have talked and talked, we need to go into actions. So meaning that after the summit, governments should seriously look into whatever has come out of the majority voices to implement them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the analysis indeed underscores the challenge that agricultural sector in Malawi has been facing over time, which have been drivers of food insecurity. Proper collaboration and coherence of policies in all sectors are key to the food systems transformation should be supported to ensure that vulnerable population in Malawi are more resilient to shocks and sustainable food systems is achieved. Thank you so much for your attention.
And thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for the Malawi experience and the perspectives. And thank you very much for the call to action. Yes, there is time for talk and there is time for action. You look like a man of action, so we're ready to join you on this march towards agriculture transformation in Malawi and, of course, across the rest of the world. Our final panelist for today is Dr. Amos Law. Dr. Amos Law is the associate professor at the University of Ghana. His research focuses on three distinct yet related areas of public health, bioethics, and global health. He is an active researcher, having served as principal co-investigator of over 20 successful research grants at the University of Ghana in Accra. Currently, his scholarly works include over 80 scientific publications with nearly all of the journal articles indexed in PubMed or in Scopus databases. In 2019, he was recognized in the Lancet Journal for his efforts at combating nutrition-related non-communicable diseases in Ghana. Dr. Law, now you've heard from two ministers, Dr. Ngabatsinze and Honorable Lowe. So you've heard the Rwanda experience, the Malawi experience. Now, when we look at the comprehensive cross-sectoral fact-based diagnostic approach of food systems transformation that has been conducted under FSTIP, what have you learned from being involved in this? And were there any counterfactuals? Was there anything that surprised you? Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Moderator, Dr. Debisi Araba, for your kind words. Honorable ministers from sister countries of Malawi and Rwanda, the FSTIP team, Dr. Namakolo Kove, President of the African Nutrition Society, Mrs. Mary Imperi, national convener of the Ghana National Food Systems Dialogues, Dr. Greenwald Matesha, it's always been safe to say all protocols Z, therefore all protocols of Z. The diagnostic analysis, the FSM diagnostic analysis and the Ghana National Food System Dialogues have highlighted a number of challenges that Ghana must address in its bid to transform its food systems. And I would like to just highlight only 5 of them. Number 1, consumption of unhealthy food. Ghana is urbanizing at a very fast pace. Currently, we have nearly 60% of people living in urban areas in Ghana. And in these areas, the food environment in the urban areas are not healthy. And those unhealthy food environments are leading to increased consumption of unhealthy food. And we all appreciate the fact that unhealthy food consumption contributes to a higher burden of non-communicable diseases. So this was one of the key things that was revealed from the dialogues and then the diagnostic. Therefore, Ghana must find a way to improve her food systems, improve her food environment as part of actions to transform the food systems. Particularly, if possible, finding ways to make unhealthy foods unattractive and unavailable, whilst making healthy foods available and affordable. So that was one. The second thing that those activities revealed relates to diet quality, food, and nutrition security. The dialogue participant, just as was revealed from the Honorable Minister from Malawi, dialogue participants in Ghana noted that responded to the question of whether or not food is available. And they said, yes, generally food is available, but is it accessible? Some of them noted to some extent. If it's accessible, is it nutritious or safe? And most of them said no. So currently, there's low production levels, affordability, and then demand for nutrient-rich food among the population. There is also limited diversity of crops, generally make the country depend on very few staples, and these staples are usually energy dense, but nutrient poor. In other words, they are not nutritious. Therefore, Ghana must institute interventions as part of her food system transformative actions to instigate a shift from actions that lead to feeding the population to actions that lead to nourishing them. And the third thing that was revealed from those activities, the diagnostic analysis and then the food system dialogues, relates to what we have known for years, discrepancies between regions. Like other countries in the sub-region, regional or subnational disparities have existed for years, usually captured as rural-urban disparities, but also increasingly urban-urban, we are observing urban-urban disparities, rural-rural disparities, and these pose challenges to Ghanaian food systems. We have recently observed that equity heterogeneity is staggering. For example, if you look at the northern part of Ghana, regions in the northern part of Ghana suffer from low productivity and difficult climate. These result in low availability and affordability of food, causing, of course, high levels of malnutrition and also high income inequalities compared to other regions. Therefore, Ghana's food systems transformative actions have to recognize these subnational level disparities. In other words, efforts to transform our food systems ought to be equitable. The fourth thing that was revealed from our engagement relates to infrastructural capacity. We recognize currently that in Ghana, there's low use of technology in our food systems actions. We have poor infrastructure, including cold chains and lack of processing capacity. And of course, these in totality lead to about 20% of food loss. Food loss, we know, increase food costs not only for farmers, but also prices for our consumers. As a country, a number of actions have been instituted to address some of the food insecurity challenges I have just enumerated, as well as food loss. And so, for example, the government has deployed what is referred to as the National Food Buffer Stock Company Limited. And this in particular is responding to the food loss challenge. Of course, some successes have been made, but challenges remain, and those challenges ought to be addressed. Quickly, the fifth thing that came out of the dialogues and the diagnostic analysis relates to environmental resilience. Ghana is highly vulnerable to climate change, and other countries as well. Again, in particular, the northern part of Ghana is particularly vulnerable. But we have also recently observed even the southern coastal areas and forested regions of the country are also experiencing important environmental resilience challenges, where heavy deforestation as a result of search for natural resources, illegal mining, usually referred to as galamsey in Ghana, is contributing to land pollution, soil pollution, water pollution, and contamination of our food value chains, as well as biodiversity losses. And so the activities that I'm referring to, the diagnostic analysis and the national dialogues have said in no uncertain terms that actions must be taken. We must act. Ghana must act, and Ghana must act now. And perhaps that which may nudge Ghana to act now would be a recognition of a wise African saying that the unborn generation is not waiting to inherit the future from us, but that we have borrowed the present from them. And those of us who are Africans recognize the need for taking very good care of borrowed essentials. And so as Africans, we are urging all of us to take care of this borrowed essential, which is our planet, such that the owners of the planet would come and receive it in a single piece. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor La. Inspiring words to finish what was really a great intervention. Now, I think we get, ladies and gentlemen, to, it's my honor again to hand the baton to Dr. Namokolo Kovic, President of the African Nutrition Society, and of course, Senior Research Coordinator at the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, also a CGIAR Center. Namokolo, you have the hardest work here to synthesize everything we've heard today. We've gotten Professor La's 5 points. We've got the perspectives from Malawi and Rwanda. Of course, now we have a rounded idea of what FS-TIP is. How do we bring this all together for the benefit of everyone listening in today? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I just want to say thank you for actually the opportunity to contribute. But let me also respectfully call on the protocols that have already been observed with our honorable ministers and the other distinguished guests. Looking at the project in the manner in which it has been structured, I think there are first 3 key points that I want to touch on. The first one is with respect to the diagnostic process that you are describing, and to indicate that this is very helpful because it is needed in order to shed light on what the challenges that are being faced by the countries are. It is based on these challenges that we can then begin to look at what the potential solutions are. But what is missing, which we have not been doing so far, which the UN Food Systems Summit process is bringing on board, is the idea of taking a holistic food systems perspective. We do have evidence in different domains of our food systems, but the diagnostic process needs to bring this all together and put a food systems lens on looking at the linkages, perhaps missing linkages even, and also to focus on entry points for aligning the efforts of different stakeholders. This alignment is critical as part of the diagnostic process because you need to identify where the missing entry points are. In doing so, you can begin to align efforts across the different stakeholders that are involved in food systems. Everybody will have their own thing that they do. And so different stakeholders will have different entry points. It is therefore extremely important that as part of the process, you've also looked at understanding entry points for different stakeholders. I think the Honorable Minister from Rwanda made a really good point of indicating that there are multiple stakeholders that are involved. It is important to hear how they may interpret the facts and the evidence that you present from your diagnostic process, because they may not interpret it the way in which you do. And the diversions in the manner in which they interpret the evidence points you towards potential areas where perhaps more interventions are needed to ensure that alignment that can bring about food systems transformation. The third is the issue of policy formulation, in that the whole idea behind the diagnostics and the bringing the various stakeholders on board is to end up with policies that are relevant for the challenges that are being faced. And here it is important that the existing policy landscape is looked at because, as you know, governments don't just go about doing things, they are informed by existing policies. But it is important to position this policy landscaping within the broader national policy environment, as well as the regional and global environments, because our food systems are embedded in a much broader perspective than just our countries. It is important to see how the policies we put in place work within that broader environment to be able to address potential trade-offs or challenges that might emerge that we might overlook. As you formulate these policies, it is important that you build into the policy instruments the accountability and governance mechanisms that should in fact form part of the monitoring and evaluation frameworks that are then put in place. And so this is where then the diagnostics hits the road, is that those policies then need to be implemented. It is important to keep in mind that multiple policies cannot be generated all the time. And so you might be between mega policies, and what you then do is you need to look at action plans, for example, that are being done on a yearly basis, and use those to address some of the issues that are emerging out of the diagnostics before the next policy comes into effect. And then I just want to finish off by saying, for the Ethiopian process, people can contact me on it, just to say that the whole process from diagnostics through to developing the food systems transformation roadway was embedded within the country policy processes. It was not done as a separate entity. Thank you, and over to you, moderator.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Kovic. As we bring this to a close, ladies and gentlemen, we're 5 minutes over time, but it would be remiss of me not to thank our honorable panelists, and of course, the organizations all responsible for FSTIP, APHRC, Academia 2063, AGRA, the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, IDRC, International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, the Rockefeller Foundation, and of course, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. Again, my sincere appreciation to Dr. Kovic, Professor Lar, Honorable Dr. Ngabetsinze, and Honorable Lowe, for the panel discussion, the synthesis, and of course, to Ms. Julian Palman for walking us through the FSTIP process. And finally, Dr. Greenwell Machaya for setting the scene at the start of this session. My name is Debisi Araba, and I thank you all for participating. We've had over 100 people join us today for this session. It's quite a robust crowd. The conversation continues and the process continues. Every single person listening and participating in this session has the ability to influence the transformation of food systems in your locality, in your country, across the world. And so we invite you to engage in the process, even in the lead up to the conclusion of the pre-summit happening in Rome and virtually around the world. And of course, the main food systems summit coming up in September later this year. We invite you to engage with all stakeholders. You are a stakeholder, so get involved. The food that we eat, everybody eats food. And so it's one of the few things that connects us all as a global community. And so we invite you to be part of this process, to figure out how we can ensure that every single human being on God's given earth has access to healthy, safe, nutritious food through the food that we consume. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But why?
Thank you
No
so
questions. No questions.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you, DBC.
No, but why don't you allow questions?
Oh, we had run out of time. But for the benefit of those who have put the questions in, the questions will be entertained in our chat on our social media handles. But if we have time, honorable ministers, can you give us a few more minutes? Professor La, Dr. Kovic, are you still available?
I'm okay.
Okay, all right. So I'm told we can have a couple of questions. So let's start with a question. Are we taking questions from the audience?
Yes, Dennis. Debisi, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I can.
Yes, my name is Sydney Piri from South Africa.
Okay, please ask your question.
Yeah, in terms of, trying to streamline, how are you guys working with organizations such as, CADIP that have got a framework already on these issues?
So CADIP of the African Union, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, do we have any other questions before I invite speakers? Jillian, would you mind taking the first stab at this before we invite the honorable ministers? What's the process involving CADIP?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Araba. And thank you very much, Sydney, for your question. So we've been lucky enough to have some of the people very closely involved with the CADIP process and also the mechanism of conducting the biannual review involved in our process from the start. And so that means that when considering which elements of food systems to look at, and also what might be some of the indicators that we can use and some of the data that we can use, this has been one of the key inputs into our process. We have also seen that there are certain elements that are currently not fully captured by the CADIP indicators and process. From its origination, it was more focused on agriculture, and so throughout the process, we've also tried to see where might be some of the elements that could be complemented within the CADIP process potentially going forward, or where we would have to look at additional processes. And so I know that the CADIP program and the people involved are looking at seeing how they can potentially include more of the food systems elements as well going. The takeaways also of this process, because indeed this is a really key process that's already in place, and I think it's one of the strong elements that we can build upon rather than coming in with something new. But I'd love to hand over to some of our panelists or other people on the call who, You might have
Thank
a
you. Thank you very
perspective
much.
as well.
Thank you, Jillian. Honorable Minister Ngabitsinze, are you able to share with us how the government of Rwanda is working with the Africa Union Commission within the CAADP framework?
Thank you so much. Even thank you to Sydney, because we are working with CAADP because as a African Union member, and the CAADP is giving to all countries, I can say, a platform where every 2 years there is a performance-based review to all countries. And Rwanda, until now, have been reporting every 2 years over 200 indicators, is almost 250 indicators. But I want to talk about the partnership and the alliance under CAADP from the coordination of all countries, because it's very important even for the work of integrated policy in food systems, because food system can't be just for one country. Let's take a regional bloc like East African Community. We promote movement of people, but the CAADP promote movement of products, agri products, movement of ideas, of skills. So CAADP is very important, and as they have said, is a reference in terms of even collecting secondary data to understand how things are done in terms of quantitative, and how collaboration in terms of qualitative are conducted. So is a very good indicator to use, and we are using it, and even our partners, they have used it in terms of assessing, analyzes the current situation we are having on food systems. So is what I can say. So CAADP is supporting us as countries to perform better, and even to be evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister Lowe, would you care to share Malawi's perspectives on how you collaborate with the African Union Commission on CAADP? Perhaps we don't have the Honorable Minister there anymore. Dr. Kovic, you, of course, in your capacity as a member of IFPRI within the CGIAR, do a lot of work on CAADP. Do you care to share any additional perspectives to respond to Sydney's question?
Yes, I think to say that CAADP is, although it is an Africa regional program, each country contextualizes CAADP to its own context. And therefore that allows, within CAADP, it allows countries to actually deal with their own food systems issues that are relevant to their country. But at the same time, as the minister from the Honorable Minister from Rwanda has indicated, CAADP also has regional programs as well. So each one of the regional economic communities has got a CAADP process. And then beyond that, then what we have seen is that CAADP is quite a unifying program across the continent. And even those few countries in Africa that are not implementing CAADP are actually submitting reports on the CAADP biennial review process because they don't want to be left behind. So that is an indication of a positive process. But beyond that, I just want to touch on the issue of the Africa Continental Trade-Free Agreement, in that with that coming on board, we now have both CAADP and the Free Trade Agreement area, both of them which have big implications for food systems at a regional basis. And so there are efforts to try and see how these could also be aligned. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kovic. I have one question here from Matthias Geck of BioVision Foundation. And the question is, the cost of food production has been mentioned repeatedly. He was wondering, to what degree have indirect costs, externalities in economic parlance, to what extent have indirect costs, as in the concept of true cost accounting, to what extent have they been integrated into the FS-TIP? Namukolo, do you want to take that, or will Julian take it?
I think Jolene would be better placed to take it because I'm not part of the core team.
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
All right.
Thank you,
Julian.
Dr. Dibisi. Yes. So I think this is a very interesting topic, and also one where we're kind of still at the frontier of understanding how do we actually measure this, and how do we integrate, let's say, all the true cost or the true price or value even of food. This is something that we are thinking of, how can we integrate that in further and more detailed analysis, also in some of the next phases of FSTIP, and how can we also, in a way, work together with different other sectors, also including the private sector, on this topic. So far, there's a view on, let's say, what is the actual cost or price, and how affordable is that? So let's say the price you pay on the market. But of course, there's, especially if you talk also about the health effects, lots of missed opportunities, lots of negative effects as well. And I think it will be important to see how we can to a better extent and to a greater extent integrate that into the work as we develop. So thank you very much. I think it's Matthias for posting this this question, and also pointing us to some of the work that's ongoing on this topic.
Yeah, thank you very much for the response, Julian, and thank you, Matthias, for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have to wrap up, and we thank you for your patience. We thank you for engaging on this really important session, and we invite you to follow up on FSTIP. I think the hashtag on social media is hashtag FSTIP or hashtag FS-TIP. TIP. Both hashtags work. All the questions will be posted online. The responses will also follow suit. The conversation goes on. And of course, we invite you to follow closely the work that we will be doing in these countries, in Rwanda, Malawi, and Ghana, and of course in Ethiopia. With that, I would like to thank again our organizers. We thank the UN Food Systems Summit organizers for granting us this side event slot. We thank you all for joining us. We thank the honorable ministers and the esteemed panel members for joining and contributing their thoughts and ideas. And we wish you all a very good day. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, DBC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.